Okay, let's unpack this. Because the sheer volume of global news, it can feel, well, overwhelming, can't it?
Definitely. It's like a constant bombardment trying to figure out what actually matters.
Right. So today, we're doing a bit of the heavy lifting for you. We've sifted through recent reports on some really pressing international developments.
We're looking at the ongoing conflict in Ukraine, which seems to be evolving again.
Yeah, and also European views on how that conflict might, eventually end, plus China's influence.
Growing influence, and also the complex situation unfolding in Myanmar.
And what's really striking, I think, when you put these pieces together is how interconnected they actually become.
Absolutely. We're looking at recent news, some commentary too, trying to get beyond just the headlines.
Exactly. Understand the deeper currents shaping things.
Yeah, what's really going on?
Our goal isn't just to list what happened, but to pull out the crucial insights, see how these events might be linked.
And ultimately what it could all mean, sort of bigger picture.
So let's dive right into Ukraine. The intensity there seems to be escalating again.
Yeah, we've definitely seen a significant uptick in Russian attacks right across Ukraine. A few incidents really stand out.
Absolutely. Like Zaporizhzhia, those Russian-guided aerial bombs, they hit the city.
Tragic consequences there. 1 death, over 24 injured reported.
And it's such a stark reminder of Zaporizhzhia's strategic importance, isn't it? I mean, a major industrial logistical hub.
Makes it a persistent target. And these guided aerial bombs, they're a real challenge for Ukrainian air defenses, apparently.
Yeah, that's what we understand.
That's right. Their speed, their trajectory, it can make them very difficult to intercept, which highlights, a concerning adaptation in attack methods and the ongoing struggle for Ukraine to protect its vital centers.
And then there were drone attacks further south and northeast, too.
Yes. In Kherson, 6 people injured.
Yeah.
And disturbingly, a hospital was hit there.
A hospital. Right.
And then Kharkiv. That sounded very intense. Reports of at least 10 injuries, multiple fires across, I think, 4 districts.
Wow. Zelensky didn't mince words, did he?
No.
Called it deliberate Russian terror.
Yeah, implying a kind of centrally directed campaign. Intimidation.
That strong statement really underscores the human cost, the psychological pressure.
Definitely. And then, of course, Odesa, a city we've discussed before, its strategic importance, the ports.
Right. Odesa faced a heavy drone attack. The mayor reported strikes in residential areas.
Yeah, we saw images, didn't we? Significant damage.
And tragically, the governor reported 3 injuries there.
On a slightly more, positive note, perhaps, the Ukrainian Air Force did claim to intercept a large number of those drones.
Right.
They said 54 launched, 38 downed, and another 16 disrupted by electronic warfare.
So their defenses are working, to an extent.
Exactly. It suggests their capabilities are active, but the fact that drones still got through highlights the ongoing challenge.
And Odesa, as we know, is just critical for Ukraine's economy, especially grain exports.
Disruptions there have really far-reaching consequences. Absolutely.
They certainly do. Now, shifting focus just a bit, within Europe, we're seeing some interesting signals about potential peace talks.
Yeah.
It seems France, the UK, and Germany have communicated some pretty firm red lines to the U.S.
Regarding any potential settlement between Ukraine and Russia.
Exactly.
Okay, so a coordinated European stance, making sure certain fundamental principles aren't sacrificed just to get a deal?
Seems like it. That recent interview with the French Foreign Minister, Jean-Noël Barrot, gave some insight.
What did he say?
Well, he expressed skepticism about Trump being able to broker a quick peace deal. Said it ultimately depends on Putin's willingness.
Right. Putin's willingness to negotiate in good faith.
Yeah, and he even suggested Putin's Easter truce was more PR, a marketing strategy, not a real move towards de-escalation.
Interesting. Barrett's perspective there, from a key European diplomat, it reveals a pretty deep-seated distrust of Russia's intentions.
And a cautious approach to any quick fix.
Definitely. It does raise the question of potential friction, doesn't it? If European and U.S. strategies start to diverge significantly.
Something to watch. Meanwhile, back on the ground, reports from Russian state media claiming the recapture of a monastery.
Yes. The St. Nicholas Belogorsky Monastery in the Kursk region, they alleged it had become a refuge for Ukrainian forces.
Okay, but this is coming from Russian state media.
Precisely. So as always, with information from state-controlled sources in conflict zones, we need to be cautious. Kyiv hasn't confirmed this independently.
But critical perspective needed on the source. Absolutely. Now, maybe more telling about Russia's strategic thinking. We heard from Vladimir Saldo. He's the Russian governor of occupied Kherson Oblast.
Okay, what does Saldo say?
He told the TAS news agency that getting control of the western bank of the Dnipro River,
Right.
that's the right bank,
Right.
is now of fundamental importance and an absolute priority for Russia.
Wow, okay. Declaring the Western Bank a top priority. That feels like a significant development.
It does, doesn't it? His reasoning was that Ukrainian forces on that side are hindering navigation on the Dnipro.
Which he argues is essential for the local economy. Makes sense tactically in a war zone.
But his ambitions seem broader. He talked about Russia controlling the entire stretch of the Dnipro within Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, and Dnipropetrovsk oblasts.
The whole stretch for wider infrastructure development.
That's what he outlined.
Hey, that signals a much longer-term strategic goal. Securing waterways, maybe consolidating control over a bigger chunk of southern Ukraine.
We have to remember the current reality, right? Russia mostly holds parts of the eastern bank in Kherson and Zaporizhzhia.
Exactly. And Putin himself has consistently demanded Ukraine cede those entire regions.
As a condition for talks?
Yeah.
That's been the line for a while now, since June 2024 at least.
Right. So this new emphasis on the Western Bank, it's intriguing.
Is it a newly defined core objective? Or maybe, I don't know, a subtle shift for future negotiations?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Is Russia digging in further, or could this be a new bargaining chip down the line?
The fact it hasn't been framed this way before. Yeah, it definitely warrants close attention.
For sure. A development to watch.
Okay, let's pivot now. Let's turn our attention to another major global player, China, and a different kind of influence.
Right. It's expanding reach. We're seeing a pretty clear demonstration of China's economic power, particularly with South Korea.
How so?
Well, reports indicate China is demanding South Korean companies stop supplying products that contain Chinese rare earth minerals.
Stop supplying them to whom?
To U.S. defense firms.
Wow, that's assertive. Directly impacting a key U.S. ally's defense supply chain.
Very assertive. The Korea Economic Daily reported on actual official letters threatening severe sanctions if they don't comply.
Severe sanctions. It really highlights China's dominance in rare earths, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. These minerals are vital. I mean, they're in everything high-tech. Renewable energy components, batteries, advanced electronics, EVs, aerospace, medical gear.
The list goes on.
So controlling their supply gives China significant geopolitical leverage. It really does.
You can see how, if China restricted access, the ripple effects for Western industries could be huge. Difficult choices, major supply chain issues.
Exactly. And it's telling that the South Korean Ministry of Industry has been pretty quiet on this.
Yeah, caught between a rock and a hard place, balancing their U.S. security alliance and China as their biggest trading partner.
It's that classic geopolitical tightrope walk.
Yeah.
And China's used this rare earth leverage before, hasn't it? During trade disputes with the U.S.
Right. So this feels like another strategic play using that economic muscle.
Pretty much. It's like having a near monopoly on something essential, like controlling the water supply in a drought.
And they process, what, around 80% of the world's rare earth minerals?
Something like that. It's a huge share, which underscores the global dependency and the potential vulnerabilities for other nations.
Definitely. Now, staying in Asia, but shifting focus, China's playing a diplomatic role in Myanmar, too.
Yes, also very interesting. Reports suggest China has been actively brokering a ceasefire there.
Between who?
Between the ruling military junta and the Myanmar National Democratic Alliance Army, the MNDAA. That's a rebel group mainly composed of ethnic Chinese.
Okay. And Myanmar has been in a terrible civil war since 2021, right? Plus that recent awful earthquake.
Exactly. A devastating situation. The MNDAA actually gained significant ground last year, capturing a key base in Lashio, near the Chinese border.
Lashio, right. And the MNDAA is part of that alliance of three brothers.
That's right. A coalition of rebel groups really pressuring the military government since late last year.
But China stepped in to mediate.
Seems so. The talks were held in Kunming, China, back in January, and they apparently resulted in this ceasefire agreement between the junta and the MNDAA.
And is it holding?
Well, we're seeing reports now of junta officials actually returning to Lashio with military vehicles present, so it suggests some level of implementation.
And China's not shy about its role.
Not at all. Their foreign ministry spokesperson, Guo Jiakun, explicitly stated that both sides thanked China for its constructive role in maintaining peace up there in northern Myanmar.
Okay, but it's important to distinguish this, right? This is separate from the wider ASEAN ceasefire efforts.
Absolutely crucial point. This China-mediated ceasefire is specific to the junta and the MNDAA in the north. ASEAN's efforts, especially after the earthquake, are focused more broadly on humanitarian access.
Facilitating aid delivery, which is desperately needed after the quake caused so many casualties.
Precisely. So you've got these parallel tracks, China dealing with this specific northern conflict, ASEAN pushing for a wider humanitarian pause.
But both efforts ultimately impact the civilians caught in the middle.
No doubt. It really highlights China's growing diplomatic clout in its neighborhood, working alongside its economic power.
Okay, so as we sort of wrap up this deep dive, a few key threads really emerge, don't they?
Yeah, definitely. You've got the escalating conflict in Ukraine, Russia maybe adjusting its strategic aims.
Europe grappling with its own red lines for peace.
And then China actively using its economic leverage over here and its diplomatic influence over there.
It's all quite complex, but hopefully, breaking it down like this gives a clearer picture of the dynamics.
Yeah, hopefully a better understanding of what's actually driving these events.
Absolutely. And it really leaves you thinking, doesn't it? When you look at all these different pieces, the battlefield in Ukraine, those trade pressures, the diplomatic moves in Myanmar, what are the really significant underlying shifts in global power and influence that we're witnessing right now?
And what could the long-term consequences be for the global order?
Exactly. Definitely something to keep mulling over.